All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a deep dive into those personality traits that society loves to label as, well, flaws. We're going to flip the script on what it means to be intense or sensitive or independent and really uncover the hidden strengths of the misunderstood mind.
I mean, has your whole life felt like a series of people telling you that you're just too much? Too sensitive, too intense, maybe too quiet? Have you ever felt that little sting from those labels? That feeling deep down that maybe there's something wrong with how you're wired? Well, you are definitely not alone. And as we're about to see, psychology tells a very, very different story.
So, what if these things aren't flaws at all? What if they're actually signs of a highly advanced system just doing its job? This quote, wow, it just reframes the whole conversation, doesn't it? The idea that you're not withdrawing from the world, but you're consciously, deliberately designing a life that protects your own peace. Let's explore that.
Okay, so first things first. We need to talk about the hardware you're running on. This isn't about being fragile, not at all. It's about processing the entire world with a level of detail that most people just can't even imagine.
This right here is the core concept, a high-resolution nervous system. And this metaphor is just perfect. Think about it. Most people are kind of watching the world on a standard def TV. They get the main picture, and that's fine. But you're operating in 8K. You see everything, every tiny shift in someone's tone, every micro-expression that flashes across their face. You're processing terabytes of data while everyone else is still on megabytes. See, it's not a flaw, it's a hardware upgrade.
So let's do a little translation, shall we? When they call you too sensitive, what's really going on is something neurologists call leaky sensory gating. Basically, the bouncer at the front door of your brain lets in way more sensory info than the average person's. When they call it overthinking, what you're actually doing is running these incredibly deep emotional simulations, trying to map out all the possible outcomes to keep yourself and the people you care about safe. And when they call it weakness because you cry, nope, that's a biological reset valve.
I mean, does any of this sound familiar? That feeling of being totally wiped out after just a simple trip to the grocery store? Or how about physically feeling a friend's anxiety in your own chest? Yeah, you can thank your hyperactive mirror neurons for that one. Or what about walking into a room and instantly knowing the entire social dynamic without a single word being said? That's not you being paranoid. That is hypervigilant empathy, a skill that was probably developed as a survival tool. You see, you're not just observing the world, you're metabolizing it.
And this right here brilliantly proves the point about crying. It is not a loss of control. It's an incredibly efficient biological function. Think about it. People who bottle everything up carry that stress hormone, cortisol, around for days, and it just leads to burnout. But you have a built-in release valve. You are literally washing stress out of your body, which lets you reset and bounce back way faster. It's not weakness, it's efficiency.
So this all leads to a really critical point. If you have this high-definition mind, you can't just live in a standard-definition world and expect everything to be okay. You have to build your own. You have to become an architect of peace.
The foundation for this whole architecture is a concept called neuroception. It's basically your body's subconscious threat detection system. You ever get that feeling of being physically heavy or just off around certain people, even if you can't logically explain why? That's your biology screaming at you. Your nervous system has gotten an upgrade. It's rejecting people and places that are a threat to your inner peace, long before your conscious mind even has a chance to catch up.
And here we go again with the power of a reframe. They might call you antisocial, but the truth is, you're just selectively social. You'd rather have one deep, meaningful conversation than 50 shallow ones. They call you cold, but really, you've just developed elite pattern recognition. You've seen the same toxic movie play out so many times, you already know the ending. And stubborn? Well, that's just psychological reactance, a deep biological drive to defend your personal freedom.
So how do you actually build this life of peace? Well, it often starts when you stop being the one who does all the work in your relationships. You reject that unspoken contract that says your worth is based on how useful you are to others. You start to trust that gut feeling when it tells you a person or a situation is just off. And you start to embrace this idea of relational minimalism. Understanding that you can't be everything to everyone, so you invest deeply in a chosen few. This isn't about giving up on people. It's about giving up on the version of yourself that put up with being disrespected. And man, this is such a crucial distinction. The solitude that you choose for yourself isn't loneliness. It's a sanctuary. It's the sweet relief of not having to decode mixed signals, or perform for other people, or shrink yourself down to make them feel comfortable. It's not an empty room. It's a regulated state of absolute peace.
Okay, this brings us to our third section, because for a lot of people with these traits, they weren't just born this way, they were forged. And usually they were forged in the fire of adversity, trauma, and some pretty profound challenges.
If you've had to walk through that kind of fire, you've probably been told you're damaged. Or even worse, you might have started telling yourself that. You might feel like something is fundamentally broken inside of you because of what you've had to endure. But, psychology tells a very, very different story.
In Japan, there's this beautiful art form called kintsugi. When a piece of pottery breaks, they don't throw it away. They meticulously piece it back together, but they use gold lacquer to fill in the cracks. The whole philosophy is that the breaks aren't something you should hide. They're part of the object's story. They actually make it more beautiful and more valuable than it was before it was ever broken. That is you.
And what an incredibly powerful way to look at it. You're not used up. You're a gold-filled vessel. Those cracks aren't flaws. They are proof that you survived, that you expanded. You are literally capable of holding more light precisely because you have been cracked open.
So yeah, the world might call you damaged, but psychology has a much better name for this kind of transformation: post-traumatic growth. They might call you too intense, but that's because you carry what's called the witness wound. You've seen things others haven't, and that gives you a depth they can't understand. And all that baggage you think you're carrying around, it's given you something incredibly rare and valuable: crisis competence.
These are the gifts that are forged in fire. Because you intimately know the texture of pain, you can spot it in someone else from a mile away. When all hell breaks loose, you actually get calmer while everyone else is panicking, because your baseline for stress is just different. You have zero tolerance for fakeness anymore, because you had to burn your masks for fuel a long, long time ago. And maybe most importantly, you often become the cycle breaker. You're the one in your family who stands up and says, "This inherited pain, this trauma, it ends with me."
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. Let's get right down to the core truth of what it really means to be you.
Let's make this crystal clear. First and most important thing, you are not broken. Everything we've just talked about shows that your systems are actually highly functional, not flawed in any way.
And you are definitely not too much. You are simply processing the world in glorious 8K, while a lot of people around you are stuck in standard definition. The issue was never your resolution, it was their receiver.
Above all else, you're a survivor. You have weathered storms that would have absolutely shattered other people, and you are still standing. Not just intact, but forged into something truly, truly unbreakable.
They probably called you the black sheep because you didn't quite fit in with the flock. But just think about that for a second. Sheep are herd animals that follow blindly. You were never a sheep. You were a wolf, or a lion, or a dragon, trying to squeeze yourself into a sheep's costume just to make everyone else feel a little more comfortable. You can take that costume off now.
So, here it is, the ultimate takeaway. Your sensitivity, your intensity, your need for solitude, these were never your flaws. They are your gifts. They are your superpowers. The only question left is, what are you going to do with them?